poll shows Democratic voters are losing interest in impeachment. So how will this impact the presidential race? Trump 2020 Advisory Board member Jason Meister says it guarantees Trump's re-election, and he is here live. Well, Nancy Pelosi's worst nightmare may be coming true. A new poll showing that even Democrats are losing interest in the impeachment inquiry. Jason Meister from the Trump 2020 Advisory Board says that these numbers are telltale signs that impeachment is backfiring, and he joins us now to break it all down for us. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. So as we begin our conversation, let's go ahead and bring up these polls, and you can see that it's the same for Democrats, for Republicans, and independents across the board, where people are losing interest. Those numbers are rising.
Yeah, look, I think these polls are actually devastating to the Democrats, and they should be very concerned. But I think the writing was on the wall. I actually predicted months ago that this would really guarantee the president's reelection. Look, the Democrats have weaponized the impeachment process. They've trampled on our Constitution, and they're denying the will of the American people. Meanwhile, you have the president, his approval rating is at the highest level it's ever been since the beginning of this impeachment sham, because he's doing the work of the American people. If you look at anything, you look at the African American and Hispanic unemployment in this country, the lowest level ever in history, ever recorded. You look at just the economy, which is the envy of the world. You look at the trade deals that he's making. When you look at, he's decimated ISIS. He's killed al-Baghdadi. So there's just so many things that he's done and accomplished in this country, and the Democrats have just obstructed, investigated, and buried this country and sort of tore it apart. And I think you see that in those polls.
Yeah, and not only does this follow the open hearings that we all witnessed and watched, and they went on for hours and hours and hours. Right. Like you just said, if you compare it to the work that President Trump is getting done, there's Democrats that really aren't getting any work done and obstructing what Republicans are trying to do. Sure,
and not only that, but put the president's election aside. I think House congressional Democrats that won in a small margin, I think we're going to flip the House in November, because those Democrats ran on saying that they would work with the president. They would get USMCA approved. They would work on the opioids crisis. They would work on drug prices. They're not doing anything but in obstructing this president, and I think that they're going to lose their positions of power come November.
And those who are attempting to run for president, what happens if, in fact, there is a trial? Because then their time would be taken away for that as well.
No, that's 100% correct. And the other thing that I think we should mention in this whole sort of thing that's going on with the impeachment push is that I think that this was a cross-current that was very strategic by the Democrats. It was a big miscalculation, as we can see in those polls. But I think that they're very worried about the IG report that's coming out on the 9th and Horowitz's testimony on the 11th. And I think that they did this because they want to sort of distract from that. That's going to be explosive, and I think that we're going to see a lot of things that we can't even imagine from that report.
Yeah, that will be very interesting. We've been waiting for it a while, so hopefully that will, in fact, drop on December 9th. Let's talk about additional candidates still jumping into the race for Democrats. Specifically, we want to talk about Mike Bloomberg and the union representing Bloomberg News journalists condemning the company's decision that we told you about yesterday to bar investigations into 2020 Democrats. There's a look at the 2020 Democratic contenders, but let's also bring up an excerpt of what they had to say. The Guild believes journalists should not only be allowed, but encouraged to thoroughly cover every single candidate as the profession demands in one of the most important elections in modern history. So is this a mistake?
Look, I think that we have to think about this from the perspective of if President Trump owned a major media news company and he put a gag order on that news company from reporting on him, investigating him, and then extended it to all the other Republican candidates, the world would be up in arms. The fact that this isn't a major, there's not a major pushback on Bloomberg for doing this, I think is atrocious. I think that this is a terrible thing. Our journalists have to be able to cover everyone fairly, and this is just not what we should be having going on in this country from a journalist perspective.
But how would they cover Mike Bloomberg as well? I mean, investigating all of the Democratic candidates and him as well.
They should be covering him fairly. They should look into his background. They should look into history. They could have come out and did the exact opposite of what they've done here. They could have said, we are owned by Mike Bloomberg, but we are independent. We are going to deliver our readers the news. Instead, they're going the other direction. I think it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, but saying they're still going to investigate President Trump.
Right.
So clearly not fair, and I think a lot of Americans will see it that way. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.